Hey folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healy. Today we're taking a look at this little fella right here, Northgard, Uncharted Lands from Studio H. It's billed as a light 4X game, so let's get down to the table and see how it works. So here I have a 3-player game set up for you, and this is before the game has actually begun. The first player is randomly chosen by whatever method you would like, and then you're able to start placing your tiles out in turn order going clockwise. So what you're going to basically be doing is you're going to be taking a look at your tiles that you have here and choosing one of them, and then you're going to place 3 of your guys into one of the areas on that tile. So for example, yellow here maybe wants to make sure they have a good opening area, so you have to choose an orthogonal place that you're going to connect to the starting tile. You'll take 3 of your dudes and put them in one of the areas that are on the newly created areas on the board. And so we could do something to that effect, like that, and then it's the next person's turn. If you're using the creatures module, if one of the tiles that a person places out has the creature's symbol on it, then you're going to flip over one of the cards, and you're going to look at the color that is denoted here, along with the creature that's there, and they will go into that area just like that. And then once everybody has placed their second tile on the board, again, following, if you're using the creatures module, following those rules for turning over another card and placing that new miniature out on their space. After everybody's done with that, the final 3 tiles are simply put at the bottom of the tile deck. So each game of Northgard takes place over the course of 7 years, and this is where you actually keep track of what year you're in. You, of course, start at 1 and go to 7. And then each year is split up into 5 different phases. The first phase is called the start of year phase, where you're going to be drawing cards from your deck, your own personal deck. Then you're also going to be putting out these development cards, 1 for each player out of the deck that you constructed during the setup of the game. And then you're going to be going into the actions phase. So the cards that you have in your deck are actually going to be kind of like using them to do actions. So this one right here is a build action, so that's denoted by the little hammer here, and that allows you to build one of the buildings into one of the areas in a space where you control, and you have the ability to do that. So these squares denote spaces that can hold small buildings, and then these multi-angular spaces here hold the larger buildings. Now, generally speaking, you can build any small building on these, and you can build any big building in this one, but there is one caveat. These little rune stones can only be built on the areas that have that silhouette on them, but any other small building can also be built onto that, but this is the only space that a runestone can be built on. They cannot be built on these normal squares here that don't have that runestone silhouette. You also have feast cards, which lets you do one of any of these, but only one action. So you can recruit one person, or you can perform one movement, or you can perform one explore action, or you can perform a build action with the feast, but you can only do one of them. Then you also have basic move cards, and you have a lot of multiple feast cards in the deck. You have 2 to start off with. So as yellow, let's say that the first action that I'm going to do is I'm going to build. So I'll use 1 of my lumber, and I'll choose to build one of these storehouses for food. So basically what a storehouse is going to do is it's going to add a food production to that area. But let's say instead that I wanted to use my move action here and perform a movement. Basically what that would allow me to do is take any number of guys from one area and move them into an adjacent area. But you have to keep track of where these yellow lines are, because this denotes rough terrain, and it actually takes 2 movement points to go across those, and this guy only has 1 movement. So with this 1 move card, I could take any number of these guys and simply move them into an adjacent area just like that. Or let's say I wanted to use one of my feast cards and perform a recruitment action. Basically, you'll be able to recruit as many icons that are here. So here it's showing +1 guy. So I can add 1 guy anywhere where I already have people in those areas. So I could add 1 to this one, or I could add 1 to this. But I have to choose which one I go to. I don't add them to both. Or let's say that I wanted to use my feast action and perform an explore action. In order to perform an explore action, you have to control an area that has an open border with the outside of the board. So for example, I wouldn't be able to explore off of this area because I don't have an open border. This is actually closed. Here, though, I do have an open border, so I could perform an explore action there. And what I would do to perform that action is simply take and flip over the next tile on top, and I can orient this as long as all of the edges are matching. So this would be a viable placement. It would actually extend this area out a little bit, but it's also going to up the amount of food production that I get from that area too. If I happen to close off an area that I control by an explore action, I'll get 1 point for each tile that this area is used by. So for example, if this had closed off this area, I would get 1, 2, 3 points for closing off that area because I'm using 1, 2, 3 different tiles. Now, there are other actions that you can take during the actions phase. One is to simply wait. So you play a card down and you say, I'm waiting. And then it'll go to the next person's turn. You can also replace, and that's where you're going to play a card down into your active area. Then you'll use one of your rune tokens, if you have had any produce, and you'll use one of those rune tokens, and you'll be able to draw a card into your hand, replacing the one that you just played. You can also remove. So you'll play a card from your hand, immediately trash it, put it out of the game, and then you'll be able to draw 2 cards and add that into your hand. But this, remember, costs 2 runes, not just 1. Or you can upgrade one of your cards, and that will simply be playing a card out of your hand. You can play it into your active area, or you can get rid of it out of the game, either or. You have to pay 3 rune tokens, and then you can choose one of your clan upgrades, and it goes directly into your hand. And that's the upgrade action. And then you can simply pass. And what that simply means is that for a couple of different things, maybe you don't want to play any more of your cards. Maybe you have already played all of your cards and you're simply done for this year. You're going to pass. Whomever is the first person to pass gets the first player token for the next year. And you get to choose one of the development cards that are out here. Now, this will be a chance for me to explain that there are some cards in the deck that have this little lightning symbol, and that's simply, they're called flash cards. What they basically do is they give you an extra action that can be played either before or after one of your regular actions, and any number of these flash cards can be played on your turn as long as you have them in your hand. At this point, after the actions phase, you're going to go into kind of a 2.5 phase where if you're using the creatures module, they are going to be moving around and doing things, interacting with your people. Whenever the creature phase happens, they are going to move. You just have to determine where they're going to move. Generally speaking, they're always going to move into where there are player pieces present. But in this situation, as you can see here with the wolf, he's surrounded by areas where there is a viable place where other people are. So he's going to look at his card to determine where he's going to move to. So basically, the first tiebreaker here is where there are the most resource production. Then the next tiebreaker, if there's still a tie there, you go to how many buildings are present. And then finally, if there's still a tie, you go to where the most people are. But the text at the bottom tells you how this creature is going to interact with the things that are around it. For example, this says the territory with this creature on it does not generate any fame or resources during the harvest phase except from buildings. So, with the wolf being here, this area is not going to produce these two food icons. The bear, however, says a player cannot build or recruit in a territory with this creature, and they cannot explore or move units from it. One of the things that you can do on your turn during the actions phase is you can attack creatures and go after them. So basically they have their own combat strength here. The bear has a 6. And then the wolf has a 4. So when you're attacking a creature, the creature is going to have their die rolled. You're going to roll your die, add any combat value in there, and whoever has the most combat value is going to be the winner. Now, to briefly explain how combat works, it is not that difficult at all. Basically, each one of your guys is worth 1 point of combat power. Combat is initiated when one person moves their units into another area that contains an opponent's units. So if the yellow person played one of their move cards and we check to make sure that they can actually get over there, they'll take any number of their people. They can actually leave it empty if they want to, but they won't control that area anymore, so they won't get the resources, they won't get the fame, all that kind of stuff during the harvest phase. So now at this point, starting with the attacker, they will be able to choose an amount of food that they want to pay up to the number of units that are in the battle. So I could use up to 2 food if I wanted to basically boost each of these guys up by +1. I'm going to use 1 food, which basically makes one of my guys 2 combat power and the other one's 1. So I have 3 altogether to their 3 as well. Blue doesn't want to lose their territory, so he's going to use 1 as well, meaning that I am 3 and blue is 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're each going to roll the die. So yellow player will roll 1 die and they will get +1 combat power and 1 death. Blue player will roll and they basically have to choose. So they look at, this is 1, 2, 3, 4 to their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If he takes that, ties will always go to the defender, but he could kill one of these dudes. It doesn't matter in this particular case because he's going to win no matter what he chooses. So he's going to choose to have that die. So at the end of the battle, both of us will have to lose a person from the battle because we both chose to use the skulls here. Whomever has the most power, in this particular case, it was a tie, and ties go to the defender. So this person has to retreat to either a controlled territory or a neutral territory, and these guys get to stick around. Combat with creatures is slightly different in that they are not going to be able to spend any food to boost their power. Their power is basically just the amount that's shown on the card, like this right here. So if yellow wanted to get this wolf out of here during the actions phase so that during the harvest phase they'll be able to get this food and not have to worry about this fella anymore, they can combat that. So he'll be able to, first of all, he must use a move action in order to initiate the battle, even if he doesn't need to move to go do that. So he'll use a move, and maybe he can pull some people in from another area like this right here, and he'll be able to attack this wolf like this. So they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're going to use a food to make one of their dudes +1, so it's a 6. So it's 6 to 4. The person to the left of the person that is doing the attack will roll a die for the animal, and then the yellow player will also roll a die. So the yellow player will roll first, and they have +2 combat power. The wolf will roll, and they have +2 combat power as well. And what happens here? 4 + 2 is 6. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. +2 is 8. They have the higher combat values, so they take out this guy right here, and he awards them 1 victory point as denoted on the bottom of this card. And so that victory point is given. The miniature is removed from the board, and then the animal card is placed into the animal discard pile, and that's how combat with creatures works as well. After the creatures phase, you're going to go into the harvest phase. And the harvest phase is where you're going to generate, first of all, fame from any closed territories that you have. Then you're also going to generate resources from those icons and or buildings that you may have built. So with yellow here, yellow is going to generate 1 wood and 1 rune from this area, but they're also going to generate 1 point, reputation point, from this area because it has 2 tiles in it. So every area that is a closed area that has 2 tiles will get you 1 point, but every closed area that is 3 or more tiles will get you 2 points. This area here doesn't generate any fame because it isn't closed off, but because the wolf is here, it doesn't generate any food resources either, so they don't get anything from this. So their harvest phase was simply 1 point, and then 1 lumber and 1 rune. After the harvest phase, then you go into the winter phase, which is the 4th phase of the year. And this is where you're going to have to pay resources to basically feed your people. And if you look at the very bottom of the player aid, it has a graph that shows you if you have 1 to 3 people, you don't have to pay any resources. If you have 4 to 6, you have to pay 1 food, 7 to 9, 2 food, and 10 to 12, 3 food and 1 lumber, and then 13 or more, 4 food and 2 lumber. And then after winter is taken care of by everybody, you go to the end of the year where you check for in-game conditions to see if any of those are met. We'll go over those in just a few moments. And then you also have second chance, which is one of the cool things about the game. And that is if anybody ever has all of their units wiped off of the board, during the second chance phase, you're able to basically take a tile, place it wherever you would like to around the edge of the board, and then place 3 of your units onto one of those areas, and you are still in the game. You'll also move the year token to the next year, and then you'll begin the next year, starting with the start of year, where we all draw new cards. These cards are put into a discard pile. You draw 4 new ones, and you're good to go. There's basically 2 ways for the game to end. The first way is if, it doesn't matter what year it is, if one player has 3 different closed off areas that each have a large building in them, they will be the automatic winner, and you don't even count points or anything like that. They just simply win outright. The second way is that you get all the way to the end of the 7th year, and then at that point, you're going to be able to count all of your points up. There's going to be a final scoring, and then whoever has the most points at the end of the game that way will be the winner. So that's about that for Northgard Uncharted Lands. Now, of course, I didn't go over every single bit of minutia in the rules. There's other stuff in there that I did not cover, but that's not really the point of my review. I just wanted to give you a basic idea of the things that you can do within the confines of the game. And I think I did that I apologize if I didn't, but I'm pretty sure that I did. You already know that I'm going to like the theme of the game. I'm a huge sucker for Viking-themed games, and this has that as well as it probably can be done without getting too historical, I guess, if that's a right way to put it, without being too realistic. This has a great Viking theme wrapped around its mechanisms, and you kind of already knew going in that I was going to say that, because I haven't been too secretive about the fact that I'm a huge sucker for Viking-themed games. My first pro is the component quality is off the chart. I really think that this game does a superb job of great quality components. And I'm not just talking about the miniatures. I know most of you probably would have thought that I was going to go straight to the miniatures talking about that, but I'm not. The tile thickness and the cardboard component thickness is great. Now, I've played some games that have really thick cardboard pieces, and it was almost kind of awkward to play the game with them. But these are, while they are not as thin as other games that I've played that would probably kind of be considered the norm, these were thicker, but they were just thick enough to where they were like, oh, okay, wow, this is quality stuff, but it's not awkward. It's not like, wow, why are these so huge? So that's one of the things that I liked about it. The tile and the cardboard component quality was really nice. The cards were, or rather, the card stock was also really good. Now, it wasn't perfect, but it was almost had a feel of almost like it was plastic and not paper. But I liked that because it made it feel more durable. It made it feel more like like if I spilled something on it, which I would do my best not to, but if I spilled something on it, it wasn't going to be automatically ruined if I got it wet or something to that effect. So I did like the card stock of the cards a lot. The custom dice were also pretty cool. They were very useful as well. The iconography on them was not difficult to remember or anything like that. There's only a couple of different icons that are on it anyway. So that was all well and good. Now, the miniatures were also very good. I think the two different sculpts that you get in your clans is pretty cool. There's a female and there's a male one, and they're both, tough as nails, and they're very durable. So I really liked the miniatures, how they each had different sculpts. Brings a little bit, an extra thematic flair to the game. But not only that, the creature miniatures that came in the game were also very cool. Here's the Fallen Valkyrie and the bear, and these are just really nice miniatures, really good sculpts. The Draugr and the wolf also very cool, depictions of those things, of those creatures that are in the game. And I also like the fact how they each had a little bit of a different shade of brown or a little different shade of tan, whatever, to go along with the multiple copies that could be out on the board and when they will fire off as you're going down that monster trail, so to speak, of cards that you lay out. Adjacent to that pro is the artwork, and I don't include artwork and components in the same thing. I know one kind of piggybacks off the other, but in this particular case, I think it does it justice to disengage the two from one another. The artwork on the cards is just phenomenal. I can't really explain to you well enough how much I enjoyed the artwork on the cards. It was just very picturesque, very thematic, but also very pointed as to what that card was all about, which helps your understanding of the card a little bit more. So I really thought that the artwork on the cards was top-notch, very well done. The artwork on the tiles, also well done, but in a different way. The artwork on the cards was very thematic, very aesthetic, so to speak, but the artwork on the tiles was very practical and very functional. And it was done so in such a way that it didn't take too much away from the theme. Often you can have very functional graphic design, but it takes away from the thematic enthrallment that the players can have. And I didn't find that to be the case with the artwork on the tiles. The gameplay was fun and rewarding. I super enjoyed all of the different elements of the game and how they worked together. I did play a fair amount of games without the creature module before adding it in, and I have to say that I don't think I'll play the game without it anymore. I think it adds that much to the game, and it adds that much fun to the game. It kind of helps the players regulate each other a little bit better, so that you can have games that are more engaging that way. And I like that. It gave you something to think about other than just attacking your opponents or just trying to get resources or just trying to do, you fill in the blank, whatever it might be. The game is filled with an innumerable strategies because of how the development card deck, how the development deck is made, how you can implement the special abilities that your specific clan brings to the table, what each player is trying to do, the kind of buildings you're going to build. All of these things lead into multiple avenues for strategy, and I really like the fact that it did that. Of course, you're going to be doing the same kinds of things throughout the course of the game, but the differences from those clan abilities really makes each of those different clans feel much more individualistic than they probably are. But it gives you that special thing that you can do. So variable player powers, which is kind of the name of that mechanism, is one of my favorite mechanisms in games like this, because we're not all the same. We're very similar, but I have something that I can do that you can't do, and I like that a lot. Deck building was a really neat way to work in the tech tree idea of a 4X game. And that provided the clans with even more differentiation throughout the course of the game as you're building your deck and drafting those cards when you're passing. I just thought that was a great idea. The tile placement exploration of the gameplay was super well done. It was a recognizable mechanism that I think a lot of other people who would normally not touch a 4X game with a 10-foot cattle prod, they will probably give this one a whirl because of the common nature of that tile placement system that they employed. Finally, I think my last pro is that this is going to fill a niche in our hobby that I think has been untouched, or at least largely untouched. Usually when somebody comes to a 4X game, they are probably, more often than not, a more seasoned gamer, or they are so interested in the intellectual property of the 4X game that they want to try that they're willing to bite off more than they can chew and just be in hog's heaven about it. To have a light 4X game hit the table that is truly a light 4X game and not just one that parades around as a light 4X game, but then once you start playing it, you're like, wow, this is super heavy. This is not super heavy. And I think that is what makes this that niche filler that probably a lot of 4X players have been looking for, so they can get more people into 4X gaming than just having to dive into the deep end and hopefully swim. I think this game tackles that light 4X genre in a very palatable, nice looking theme that a lot of people will be able to hook onto a couple of those different mechanisms like deck building, like tile placement, and really kind of hit the ground running with it. So with all that having been said, I'll go ahead and give my rating of 2 thumbs up. And the reason I'm giving this 2 thumbs up is because of everything I've just said. The fact that it's a Viking game on top of all that is just cream on the cake. I love it, and it's going to stay on my shelf for a long time because I think it's great that it fills that light 4X niche so well. So that's my rating of it. 2 thumbs up. Thanks for joining me here on the Flipside. I certainly appreciate it. But we're going to get on out of here. So we'll see you guys and gals later on the Flipside. Take care.